Hi Mindsetters, grade 12s. As you can see, we are now live for Life Sciences Paper 2. I've got Aslam with me. How are you?
Fine, and Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm very good. First of all, it's a Friday, and it seems like it's spring outside, guys. So today is a nice time to learn more and learn extra. Today, as I said, we're going over Paper 2, and we're going over life processes.
I say.
Yes, yeah, that's it. So guys, I hope we're all very, very excited for the show. If you want, you can go and take your stand at the table, at your workstation, and I'll tell them all about the competition.
Thank you, dear.
Guys, we're going to have such fun. Please send through all of your questions. Remember, there is no such thing as a silly question. Aslan will be going through anything that you want today. So send through those questions from paper 2, and we are here to help you. But now, I know that you're all excited about our challenge question or our competition question. So this is how you enter, and this is what you can win. So what we're giving away today, so this one is Michael Kiwanuka, Home Again. The CD, it's going to be awesome. And then also we've got the YFM We Built This City, which is a compilation of awesome artists and lots of groovy tunes. But obviously we want to learn more, we want to learn extra, and we want to do awesome in school. So what we're also giving away is a textbook of your choice. Perhaps you want to choose the life science, since we are doing life science today. And not last but not least, this awesome I'm a Mindsetter t-shirt, which you'll be winning too. What you need to do is you need to answer the challenge question. I'm sure my producer's about to put it up on the screen, and this is what the challenge question is. It is, what part of the body produces thyroxine? Is it A, the thalamus, B, the thyroid, or C, the pituitary gland? And don't forget, Mindsetters, the code is 2680, and there are various ways of entering this competition. What you need to do is write these down. Sometimes it's a bit hard to remember, but the easiest ways are to email win@LearnExtra, or you can post it into our PEP text group, and the group code is LearnExtra, and that is a free download, guys. Once you've downloaded it, you can send us answers for free, and you can do that on your cell phone. It's www.pepclub.mobi. I will be posting it on the Facebook page and Twitter, so you can get that for reference. Or, here's the SMS number. Get those pens and papers out, guys. It is 083 44 888 10. And don't forget, when you are posting in Facebook, please make sure that you post in the events page for today. So that is our Friday event. And another thing before I pass on to Assam for our awesome lesson, guys, grade 12s, I know you're saying that now, grade 12's finished, next week is the grade 11s, and now you're not going to be able to win more or learn more. That is wrong. Please tune in for the grade 11 shows, guys. It's amazing to get your knowledge up to scratch, and you may be needing it for your prelims and for your final papers. So, after all of that, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the show on to Aslam. Don't forget facebook.com/LearnExtra. Also chat to us on Twitter @LearnExtra. I'm Indy, and I'm here to help you, and guys, help each other out on the page too. Thanks to Liberty for letting us have this awesome show, and I hope that you have a fantastic Friday, and let's learn more, let's learn extra, let's do life sciences. Aslam, are you ready?
Thanks.
I told you I'd talk a lot, eh?
You talk a lot, yeah? Indeed, thanks a lot for that. Life sciences, you're right, and we are live on life sciences, one of the best subjects that you will ever come across. It's about yourself, obviously, so it has to be fun. We're going to start today with some questions that we have. And don't forget, we're waiting for your questions, because your questions will help us to help you, and there may be thousands out there that have the same questions, and with your questions, we'll be able to help all of them. So come along, guys, give your questions through, and let us help you go through that. We're kicking off today with the coordination system, and what we're going to do, we've grouped the questions in such a way that we look at the hormonal section first, that is chemical coordination in animals and chemical coordinations in plants. Thereafter, we'll go to nervous coordination, and we'll progress as we go along. The first question that we have here comes from a NATED or Senior Certificate Exam 2011 higher grade. This is the paper that they write in the April-May period that we mark in June normally. This question is higher grade paper 2, question 1.6. Fairly straightforward question. It says, answer the following questions on hormones. Remember, hormones form part of chemical coordination. Or also we can say the endocrine system, just so that we know where we are. They say, name the endocrine gland. What's the question? Name the endocrine gland which secretes each of the following. Which secretes each of the following. The verb in the question, obviously, name. That's all you got to do. Just name. What do you need to name? The gland. Which gland? The gland that secretes each of the following. Very simple. Again, notice I am highlighting the key words so that you know what to do when you're answering the questions. Answer the question. And how do you do that? Read the question and look for the verb. The first one is TSH, or known as thyroid stimulating hormone. Which gland secretes that one? It would be the hypophysis or pituitary gland. Some textbooks still have the habit of calling it master gland. The consensus from the examiners and the National Examination Panel is that we do not accept master gland. So these are the only two names you will accept for the hypophysis or the pituitary gland. Make sure that you use those words. The next one is easy. The adrenaline or adrenal hormone is obviously secreted by the adrenal gland. Thyroxine C, thyroxine is secreted by the thyroid gland. And the growth hormone is secreted also by the hypophysis or the pituitary gland. So this was a very straightforward question, guys. Simply, you had to give the names of the glands that these hormones belong to. A very useful technique when learning this particular section is to draw a line diagram of the body, put all the positions of the glands, name the glands in one color, take another color of pen, and write down next to the name of the gland the hormone it secreted or the hormones it secretes. Next to that, in another color pen, write down the functions of those hormones. And in still another color, write down what happens if there's too much of that hormone or too little. That way, on one double-page spread, you've got the whole chapter covered. You just need to then add to that the negative feedback mechanism. The next question, exactly where in the human body is gland named in question 1.61b found? Let's go back there. Oops. Something going wrong there. I think the B is the adrenal or adrenaline. And this gland is obviously from the adrenal gland, and this gland is found on the top of the kidney. There are two of them, one on either side, one on either kidney. Okay, adrenal glands. Next question says, it was found that the thyroxine concentration of a healthy adult remained very low for a period of 3 months. So they're talking of a particular hormone now. Which hormone? The thyroxine hormone, which is secreted by the thyroid gland, as we spoke earlier. What happened to it? It was very low. And notice they're talking about a healthy adult. That means this adult doesn't have any other problems. His only problem here is that he has a very low thyroxine concentration in his blood. Let's look at the questions now. Will this person gain or lose weight if he or she continued with his or her normal diet during this period? Notice the type of question here, and notice what we are trying to put in this question so that there are no other answers coming from here. Because gaining or losing weight could come from a variety of sources, but they are excluding all the other variables, and they're only saying that the only difference in this particular human being, of this adult, is that his or her thyroxine levels are low. Everything else is normal. All other factors to remain constant. And what did I say here? He had a low thyroxine. Now, what are they actually testing here, guys? This is what we need to answer to understand. They are simply testing whether you know the functions of this hormone thyroxine. Because if you know the function, if thyroxine does X, Y, or Z, then obviously if it is too low, then X, Y, or Z won't take place. And what is it that it does control? It controls the metabolic rate. That's the first part that we need to understand. Thyroxine controls the metabolic rate. So obviously, guys, if it is low, then the metabolic rate would be low. And if the metabolic rate is low, let's stop there for a moment. What is this metabolic rate that we are talking about? The metabolic rate is the rate at which you and I burn food. In other words, the food we eat, we burn it during which process? Yes, from grade 10, cellular respiration. So we burn this food to give us energy so that we can carry out. As I'm talking, I need the energy. As you're listening and whatever else you're doing while you're listening, you need some energy too. So therefore, obviously, the metabolic rate will give you this energy. But at the same time, if the metabolic rate is low, that means the rate at which you burn the food is slow. And if the rate at which you burn the food is slow, what would happen? You would have excess food in your body. So obviously, the answer then in this part here, you will gain weight. That's the first one. And the second one, obviously, like I said before, the minute they ask you to make a choice, choose this or that, the very next question in life science is always explain. So we do not leave the room for guessing. You may get away with the first part, but in the second part where there's more marks, 3 marks here, then you need to know your stuff. So they're saying gain weight, and I've already alluded to most of the facts already. So what we are saying is, if the thyroxine is low, the metabolic rate would be low, and therefore food will be burnt or oxidized, if you want to, slower, and more food will be converted to fat and stored. And that way, obviously, all leads to gaining weight. Lovely question, a higher level question, but what it is actually testing? All these higher level questions, they only test what you're supposed to know, but they are giving it to you in a different way, so you need to apply your mind to answer a question like this. The next question, the more famous question in this section, they love to give you a diagram like this and ask you questions. And this question says, study the diagram and answer the questions that follow. I'm going to take it as far up as I can there. The first one says, label parts 1, 2, and 4. 1 at the base of the brain would be the pituitary gland or hypophysis. Next one is 2. 2 is this one here, the thyroid gland. And 4 on top of the kidney, adrenal glands. So we have looked at 2 ways in which they can ask this particular question. So that's your 3 marks for that one. Write down only the number. Instructions, guys, very important. The question is telling you, write down only the number. If you give the name, tough luck, guys, 0. Absolutely no marks for that. You have to give the number of the gland that, firstly, produces the hormone glucagon. Glucagon is produced by the pancreas, so that would be number 3. If I wrote pancreas here, I would have got 0 marks. Next one says controls the growth of long bone, and that would be number 1, the pituitary gland. needs iodine for the normal functioning? We go back. That would be obviously the thyroid gland, and the answer there is number 2. Regulates the water balance. Now this one here is a question that's asking you something in a different way. How does it regulate water balance? By the way, what do we call that process? Osmoregulation. And that would be obviously the pituitary gland again, because it secretes ADH from grade 11, so that would be number 1. Name any 2 physiological effects of the hormone secreted by 4. Let's go back to 4. 4 is the adrenaline or adrenal gland, and it secretes adrenaline. And this adrenaline will control the heartbeat, increases heartbeat, increases the blood pressure, increases blood supply to the brain and the muscles, and so on. We have another question about this adrenal gland and adrenaline, and we will tackle that as soon as we come back from the break.
Break time. Okay, guys, so you know what that means. It's time to get up and jump around and get the energy going. I see a whole bunch of you have joined in. Kashifa. Let's just have a look. Who else? A whole bunch of you. Let's see. Sidonia. And Fred and Richard. Guys, if you are watching, please let me know on the Facebook page, and you guys know that you can help each other out. If there is anything that you don't understand, please post it. We will be going over your questions and helping you guys out to learn more and to learn extra. We'll see you now after the break. Hi guys, we are back. As you can see, I'm so busy watching the page. Kamogelo, you have a question. We're going to get Aslam. Aslam's actually about to go over exactly what you have answered. Hi Sidonia, I see that you won the competition this morning. Well done. Guys, please chat to us on the page. This is your chance to ask whatever questions you want, and there's no such thing as a silly question. Only the questions that are asked after the exam, because then it's too late, and then we can't help. I do know that Kashifa was talking on the page, and she's quite upset that she's not going to be able to enter the competition next week because she's in grade 12. But guys, you can. Grade 12s, please make sure you do join in for the grade 11's lessons next week, and you will be able to still enter the competition. How great is that? Okay, so I'm just going to read Kamagelo's question, and then Aslam will be going through it as we go along, and keep those questions coming. Chat to us on Twitter at LearnExtra, also on Facebook at Mindset Learn, facebook.com/LearnExtra. You see, I'm getting my words muggled up today. It's definitely a Friday. Okay, so which gland secretes a hormone that regulates peripheral blood circulation, and what is that hormone?
Okay, thanks, Indy. Let's move on. I'm going to be answering your question as I go through this question. So pay careful attention and let's see what it says. The study diagram below and answer the questions that follow. They give you a beautiful diagram. They're talking about a hormone, A, that is secreted, and it causes the heart to beat faster. It causes the arteries to the gut to become narrow. It causes the arteries to the muscles to widen. And I may add here, it also causes the peripheral blood vessels also to become narrow. By the way, guys, just to explain that big word, peripheral blood vessels, periphery means to the sides. In this case here, to the outside, close to the surface of the skin. So the question is actually asking, what hormone causes the blood vessels that are going to the skin to become narrow? Another nice word for narrow, by the way, is constrict. I use these words so that when you see them in an exam, you are not knocked off your socks when you see constrict and you wonder what the hell is that. It is becoming narrow. Dilate to become wider. Okay, so here they're talking about widen and narrowing. So that's what's happening there. Explain the importance of the narrowing of the arteries to the gut under emergency conditions. By the way, we could even substitute the gut here to the peripheral blood vessels. The answer is exactly the same. Okay? Why does this happen? Now, let's first see what hormone causes this. We just discussed it a few minutes ago, and that is adrenaline. What is this adrenaline? Adrenaline is known as your flight or fright hormone. It prepares the body for emergencies. Now, keep that in mind. Don't learn this stuff from the textbook. Think about what I'm telling you now. An emergency. Think about you and what's going to happen. What do you need in an emergency? Imagine a snake chasing you or something like that. Or something, they call you up in the office. You hear on the intercom, Aslam Khan, report to the office immediately. And that's the deputy principal talking, calling you there. Imagine what happens to you in that time. Okay? Let's see what happens there. So they want to know what happened. Why is this? What is the importance of this? First of all, guys, when there's an emergency, you want to run away from an animal. You want to run away from your father, for that matter, whoever it is. Somebody's boyfriend, you were seeing somebody's girlfriend, and the boyfriend came for you, and you want to run away from him. Or the other way, obviously, you're running away from somebody's girlfriend. Do you need to digest food in this time? No, there's no time to digest food. So therefore, in this time, the blood vessels, they narrow to the gut and the skin because we need to divert the blood to strategic organs. In other words, those organs that will deal with this emergency. When you need to get away from this emergency, what do you need? First of all, you need more blood to go to the heart so that it starts pumping faster, one. Two, you need more blood to go to the brain so you can think quickly to make a decision of where you want to go. And finally, with the brain working well, with the heart working well, if your muscles don't work, you ain't going anywhere. You're going to be stuck in the same spot. So more blood must also go. These are the strategic organs we are talking about. The brain, the heart, and the muscles, so that you can supply oxygen faster to everywhere else. Your respiratory rate is quicker, so your cells get more energy, and with more energy, you can respond to the emergency. So that is where we are talking about here, or what we are talking about. So this answers this question and the question we got about that other one there just now on the Facebook page. They say, name the part of the human eye that is also affected by hormone A. Hormone A is the adrenaline or adrenaline. And what does it do to the human eye? It dilates the pupil. And what does this do? It allows more light to enter the eye. And what does that do? Gives you a clearer image. So can you see how this hormone plays an important role in whatever you're doing? Now remember this one here, remember in terms when you are afraid, when you are excited. I don't even want to think about what you're thinking about when I say excited. It could be anything. But I'm talking about in a situation where you have won a prize maybe, or
matric dance, there you go. Matric dance.
the matric dance, you're moving to the matric dance and you're walking, they're calling your name up and you're going forward, or you're getting an award, whatever it is. All those excitement situations I'm talking about. Think about what happens to you. Obviously, you know that your heart beats faster. And if the heart beats faster, blood will flow faster. And this will increase the blood pressure. You can't read this in a book and swat it and then try and regurgitate it in an exam. Live it. This is life science. You've got to live life science, and you will understand these things very easily. The last question here is, explain the advantage of the influence of hormone A on the part mentioned in question 3.22. I have answered that for you already. There's the story. The first thing is it dilates the pupil, and that is the reason. Allows more light to enter, and this gives a clearer image to respond. You must end by saying to respond to the emergency. So that's your 4 marks for the last one there. Good. That brings us to the sum up of the first part of the coordination, and that is the human coordination or endocrine system, we now move on to the plants. And the first question here, this question was, although we're saying it came from an NSC paper, this was a multiple choice question. I have simply taken the diagram and I have changed the questions. I put questions in it to interact with this section, right? So just bear with me there. It says, learners placed a pot plant in a box and made an opening to allow light to enter the box as shown below. Study the diagram and answer the question. So there's our plant, there's the box, they made an opening there, so light is only entering that way, and you'll notice that this plant is responding to this. The first question here, what phenomenon were the learners investigating? It must be Friday, I'm also getting tongue-tied. Okay? And you would know this from your work, if you've learned your work, that obviously the phenomenon is phototropism. By the way, tropism means response to, and photo will then bring it response to light. Chemotropism to chemicals, gravitropism to gravity, or geotropism is also to gravity, thigmo to touch, hydro to water. Okay, so those are the different words that we use there. Remember, if they ask you in an exam, response to a stimulus, you cannot say phototropism. You cannot say chemo, you cannot say hydro, because they did not use the word light, water, etc. There, the word is only tropism. Once they mention these words light or water, then you would go with photo, hydro, and geotropism. What possible hypothesis could the learners have had for this investigation? So you can see what they're doing. They want to check what's happening if they allow light to come to the plant from one side. So obviously the hypothesis has to be around that. So we can say the following. Stems will bend towards or against, or away from the light source. This is a hypothesis. That is why we can use the word towards and away. There's no wrong answer in that particular case. But it must be related to the investigation, and it must have an independent variable, it must have a dependent variable, and it must have a relationship. Let's look at it this way. Stems will bend, so the bending action is one of the variables. Light is the other variable. And because we, the investigators, can manipulate light, light is the independent variable. And the bending of the stem is dependent. And this is obvious in another way as well. Why? Because light is not dependent on the bending, but the bending is depending on the light. Whether the plant bends or it doesn't bend, nothing is going to happen to the light. But if it gets light, or we take the light away, it will affect the bending of the stem of this plant. So therefore, that's a dependent variable, that's an independent variable. And when we say towards or away, then we are giving the relationship. Now guys, I see lots of learners writing, they want to see the effect of light from one source to the stem. That is not a hypothesis. That is an aim. We want to see something. But when you're making a hypothesis, you are taking a stand. You are saying something about this. So keep that in mind. Account for the bending of the stem above. Very simple. This one is easy. When light comes from unilateral, in other words, unilateral. Sorry about that. Spelling letting me down. Must be the pen, can't be me. Unilateral light meaning from one side only, then the oxons move to the other side. Which side? The side that is not in the light. And this then stimulates cell division and elongation there. And therefore, more growth increases here. Where? In this area here that was getting elongation. And the stem bends towards the light. We say that it is positively phototropic. That's your answer. Again, notice how I've set the answer. So that is how the marks are allocated. So make sure that you set your answers this way, and in that way you can get full marks in a question like this. Remember the very simple story here about the bending. Look at your elbow. Is there more skin here? Is there more skin here? Or is there more skin on this side? No, definitely there's more skin on this side. So what can your elbow do? Bend this way. Your elbow cannot bend the other way. Only Steven Seagal does that in all his movies when he cracks all the bad guys' hands and he turns it the other way and the bones pop out there to give some drama. So your growth more on this side, it will bend this way. Or if you are rowing a boat, if you want to turn left, you will row the oar on the right-hand side and it will turn left. That brings us to the end of this part, people. And when we come back from the break, we'll go into the brain and we'll take questions on the brain.
The brain, guys, you know all about the brain. It's about flexing that cerebellum and that cerebrum, and that's what it's all about. It's about boot camp. Just before we go to break, you guys can phone us and ask questions live on the show. You can also phone us and we will phone you back. So take down this number. It is 086 105 8262. I will be posting it on Twitter and on Facebook, so please call in. We will phone you back and get all those questions for us. See you now after the break. Hi guys and welcome back. Can you believe that the lesson is going so fast? I just want to let you know that the competition does close at 4 p.m. sharp. Just in case you don't know how to enter, please email Win It Learn Extra, post onto our pep text group, or SMS 083 44 88810, or you can post into our events page. We've got a few questions here that we will be going through quickly with Aslam, and keep those questions coming. I do know. Let's go. Sia Demore has a question. Are we ready for it? Yeah. She says, could you please explain why auxins may be used as selective weed killers?
Okay, let's do that first, right? Sia Demore.
Yes.
Sia Demore, that's an excellent question. How are auxins used as weed killers? Now, again, in all these heavy questions, or so-called heavy questions, what are they testing? They can only test what you know. What you're supposed to know, you need to know the functions of auxins. One of the functions of auxins is cell division and elongation. So when we have weeds, what they do, they spray auxin on the weed. So what have they done? They have increased the cell division and elongation. So the weeds actually overgrow. And when they overgrow, there's competition, and then the resources will be low. And if the resources are low, the plants will die. And in that way, we control the weeds. So we're basically giving them a stimulation to overgrow, overpopulate, and the competition gets too heavy, so there's not enough resources, soil, water, mineral salts, and those plants will die eventually because of that.
Fantastic. Okay, so guys, we've got another question about auxins. It is from Success, and she wants to know, would you please explain how auxins are used to control apical dominance?
Okay, Success, we're going to help you to be successful to answer that question.
Yes.
Where we there? I'm going to do it in a little corner here. They want to know about apical dominance and auxins. What we must understand is auxins is important for apical dominance. What is apical dominance? Apical meaning the growing tip. So apical dominance means as long as the growing tip is there, the lateral branches in a plant will not grow. So when the auxins are there, they are found at the tip. Now, how we can prove this? Various experiments. They can cut off the tip to see what would happen to the plant if we expose it to from one side and so on. If we do that, we'll see the plant will still go straight. What does that prove? It proves that the auxins are the ones that are found in the growing tip, and they bring about the bending movements. Now, what's so great about this? If some of you know, you live in areas where people, instead of putting in concrete and wire fencing, they use plants to make a little fence, if you may call it, which we call hedges. And you'll notice when somebody has this type of a barrier between him and his neighbor or him and the outside, he or she would be continually cutting the top off. Why? Because auxins are found at the top. And if we take them off, the apical dominance feature falls away and the lateral branches start growing. And therefore, the plants grow sideways and they form a thick fence-like border around that way. So first of all, we must understand that auxins are found at the tip. And this is why they stimulate growth there, and that's why the growing tip grows faster than all the others. And while it is there, the lateral branches will not grow. If we cut the tip off, the lateral branches start growing. I'm hoping you can now successfully deal with that question at any time it comes your way, success. We now move on to nervous coordination, and we're starting with the brain. The first question obviously says, study the diagram and answer the questions that follow. Straightforward instruction. They're giving you a diagram of the brain there, section through the human brain, label parts 1, 4, and 5. And let's look at 1. I do it on the diagram. That would be the cerebrum, or some people will say cerebrum. Doesn't matter as long as you spell it correctly. Number 4. Notice this one is a tricky one. You see, as you're coming down the stem of the brain, there will be a swelling, this one here. This swelling here is the pons. Pons varolii. You do not have to know too much about the pons varolii in this grade 12, so don't stress about that one. But the one just after that, this one here, oops, that one moved, sorry about that. But here, the number 4 will be the medulla oblongata. We had a lovely answer in the nated question paper. The guy called this Abdullah oblongata. So I said to my Muslim friends, we've got a new name for Abdullah oblongata, new surname for him. So guys, those things keep our marking entertained, but at the same time, it keeps your marks down. So don't keep your marks down at the expense of entertaining us. We get paid for marking. Okay, 1, 4, and 5, obviously the cerebellum. That is number 5. Good. Let's move on. Name 2 functions of parts 1 and 4 respectively. Now, when they ask you this question and they say respectively, even if you don't write number 1 and you don't put number 4, if you gave it in the order because it said respectively, so obviously 1 must come first and then 4. However, you make it a habit. If they're asking you for 1 and 4, always write down 1, give the function, 4, give the function. These little things are even more important than the answers, guys. If you muddle these things up, you lose marks unnecessarily. So let's go back to 1 and 4. 1 is the cerebrum and 4 is the medulla oblongata. 2 functions of each. Number 1, cerebrum controls all voluntary action. I'm going to abbreviate there. It also controls all higher thought processes. like memory, how you can remember things, thinking, judgment, making judgments, etc. All that is coming in that area. And also perception of sensations. In other words, your seeing, your hearing, your touching, feeling, etc. all is controlled in that area. All these messages from your fingers, from your eyes, from your ears, they all go to the cerebrum, and the cerebrum interprets these things. Predict what would happen if part 6 is damaged. Part 6 should be, part 5. We'll change that to 5. Part 5 is damaged. Here's part 5 is the cerebellum. In other words, again, guys, whenever they ask you, this is a predict question. This is the cerebellum. What if it gets damaged? What do you need to know first? You need to know what it does first. Because if it gets damaged, then whatever it's supposed to do, it can't do anymore. So what does the cerebellum do? It is involved in balance and equilibrium. So obviously there will be no balance and equilibrium. And also, there's also a problem with the muscle tone. No muscle tone. By the way, just to explain, muscle tone refers to the healthy conditions of the muscles to do work. In other words, they must be ready for action. So if the cerebellum is damaged, then the muscles will not be ready to respond to stimuli as well. And no balance and equilibrium, because while the cerebrum controls our voluntary action, the fact that we can walk, talk, etc., the cerebellum coordinates it. The fact that I'm writing here, I'm not muddling it up. The fact that I'm talking and it's not coming out like that, you're understanding what I'm saying, because it's coordinating that. Okay? Next question deals with the spinal cord and reflex action. Diagrams A, B, C, and D below show some of the processes and structures involved in a reflex action. Study and answer the questions. So they give you A, B, C, and D. And in here they say, during a reflex action, these processes and structures are involved in a particular sequence. Describe these events by completing the table below. Write only, look at the instructions, write only the answer next to the question number A to H. So you did not need to re-draw this table in your book. You simply needed to write A, B, C, and D. So what happened in A, B, C, D? You needed to describe what is happening there. So let's see what's happening there. So first of all, obviously they're not given in the proper sequence. We look at this one here, would be the first one there, where at A, stimulus is received because there's a candle burning and the person's going to get burnt, so the stimulus is received. Okay? Then we move on. From there, what's going to happen? Can we go here straight? No. Can we go there straight? Yes, we can. So the next one is C here. And what's happening at C? They're talking about second. They want it in order. Just remember that. They want it in order. And what happens at C is that the stimulus is converted to an impulse. And this impulse goes via a sensory neuron to the spinal cord. The last one, not the last one still, after that, now what happens? It comes into the spinal cord that way, it's making a synapse, and it's going out via a motor neuron there. So a motor neuron takes the impulses away from the spinal cord. And the last one would be this guy, A here. The muscle contracts. And as you can see, when the muscle contracts, you pull your hand away. Remember, the time it takes for this to happen is much, much shorter than the amount of time I've taken to explain it. You cannot sit on the stove or with a candle and say, okay, guys, my hand is burning. What shall I do? No, it doesn't work like that. The moment you get burned, you pull your hand away. When you were little, you were crawling around, and your mom said, stay away from that heater, shoo shoo, don't go there, shoo shoo. But you went there, and when you touched it, you burnt and you pull your hand away. Poor mother also, with all that, she got angry with you. She probably gave you a hiding on your hand anyway after you got hurt. You burnt, plus you're getting hiding from your mom as well. So please make sure you are looking at that. The sequence will obviously be the way I've given you the sequence was B first, and then C, and then D, and then A. Okay, next one, still dealing with the nervous system, study diagrams 1, 2, and 3, parts of the human nervous system, and answer the questions that follow. They're giving you some diagrams there. There's 1, there's diagram 2, and there's diagram 3. Question says, identify parts A, B, and C. A, look at the number of extensions to the cell body. This will be a multipolar neuron. Or somebody may label it as a motor neuron. A, B, and C. B, as you can see, one process leaving here, so this is a unipolar neuron. You can call it a sensory neuron as well, but not all sensory neurons are unipolar. Just remember that. All right, so we've done A, B, and C. This will be a connector neuron. Or we can call it an interneuron, or we can call it a relay neuron. The job of the connector neuron, by the way, is to communicate between the sensory neuron and the motor neuron. Write down the type of neuron and the diagram number, 1 or 2 of the neurons which are represented by each of the following diagrams in 3. There's 3 there now. There's 3 here. Some of our neurons are missing here, but anyway, the one would come from there. The other one would be going there by D and E. Okay, D would be the sensory neuron, so obviously it will be B. The letter we will say here, B, the sensory neuron. And E would be obviously C, no, not C there, E. E, the motor neuron. Notice there's no, we've already given that story there, and that's our answer there. Okay, that brings us to the end of the brain and the spinal cord, and therefore that brings us to the end of the central nervous system. So with that, to Indy.
Let's take a break, guys. Guys, keep chatting on our page. I think we've got 6 minutes until our competition is closed. So use this break to get in those last answers, and then we will be picking the winners. What we do is we take 2 correct answers from PepTex, 2 correct people from SMS, Facebook, and then what we do is we take a name from there, and that is how we get the winner. So get those answers coming in. See you now after the break. Hi guys, and welcome back to the last segment, last half an hour should I say, of Winter School for Grade 12s. This is Life Science, and I hope you've been tuning in since 9 a.m. this morning. We've got a question from a learner that we will be going through. Guys, keep those questions going and coming. We will be going over them in the last 15 minutes of the show. And don't forget that the competition is now closed, and we will be finding out who the lucky winner is for today's show. We have got a request from Sia Demo asking, where is Noxipedia? Are you watching, Noxie? And I see that we've got so many of you guys that are posting on the page, and I think it's fantastic that you are helping each other out. Don't forget, this community is not just ours, but it is also for you to help each other learn more and learn extra. I find that sometimes it's easier for me to learn when I'm sharing my thoughts and opinions.
Exactly. Indeed, when you teach something to somebody else, then obviously you are learning in that process. And when you share it, apart from the fact that you must be a good human being, when you're sharing it, you're talking about it. And when you're talking about it, you need to understand it before you explain it to somebody else. So therefore, your understanding becomes easier.
Exactly. Okay, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, please.
This one is from Anisa Kasim, and she asks, is there a difference between the auditory canal and the meatus?
Anissa, that's a famous question. Is there a difference between the auditory canal and the auditory meatus? No, they are one and the same thing. If you are comfortable with saying auditory canal, it would be credited in the exam. The other word is auditory meatus. And we'd be dealing with some of that with this question.
Fantastic.
Study the diagram below showing a portion of the human ear and answer the questions that follow. They give you a diagram. They're not giving you the entire diagram of the ear. They're just simply giving you a portion of the ear. And let's go straight into the question. Give one function for each of the parts A, B, and E. So let's go back to the diagram. A would be the hammer. And just like Anissa's question about different names, the hammer is also called the malleus. But if you use hammer, you would get the mark for it as well. It is an acceptable common name. You can only use acceptable common names in your answer. Like we said earlier, master gland we do not use. We only use hypophysis and pituitary. In this case, we can use hammer or malleus. So this is the hammer or malleus. Its function obviously is to knock onto the next structure here, the incus, and here it will be the stapes. And our common names here are anvil, and this one would be the stirrup. By the way, guys, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand why we gave them these names, hammer, anvil, and stirrup. But obviously, you needed to know these other things. Many of you don't know what an incus is, or rather an anvil. The blacksmiths use it, and the stirrup, when you're watching some of those Western movies, when you see the guy gets onto a horse and he puts his feet into those little metal structures on the side, that is the stirrup. And hammer, obviously, I'm hoping all of you know what a hammer is. So because of the shape of these structures, they've been given those names, and they became acceptable over time. The question, however, is not about that, but they say give one function of A, B, and, sorry, let's go back there, A, B, and E. So the hammer transmits vibration. It will always be from something to something. From, where's it coming? From the eardrum, or we call it tympanic membrane. Where to? To the next structure, to the anvil. That's its job. However, collectively, all these bones, these are all bones, by the way, all these bones, because of the reduction in size, look at what's happening. Your pinna is around here. Sound is coming in from the pinna, very large surface area, going into a canal. From there to the tympanic membrane, still a bit big. Look at these things now. They're getting smaller as we're going down. And the other function of them together is to amplify sound, to make the sound louder. Okay? And the next one was B. And B is obviously the canal. It directs sound waves to the eardrum. And E, there's E, there's the oval window there, oval window, and its function is to transmit again vibrations from, where did it come from? From the stirrup to the inner ear. Some may argue that you can just say from the middle ear to the inner ear, but we want to be specific of each part here. Very simple. What does part D lead to? Let's go back to the diagram. D, by the way, is the eustachian or eustachian tube. It leads to the pharynx. Okay? Explain what would happen if part D was blocked. Now we must know the function of part D to do that. Let's go down there. We know what it is, so we can talk about it. We're talking of the eustachian tube still, and if it is blocked, first of all, what's the function? It maintains balance on either side of the tympanic membrane. Let's go back up. It maintains balance in pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane. So it there and there, the inside and the outside. So what must happen here, guys, is that the balance of pressure, it's not just balance, I must add that balance of pressure. The pressure on the outside of the eardrum and the pressure from the inside must be equal. You would remember sometime if you're going down to Durban and you're coming down to Maritzburg area, your ear gets blocked. This is because the altitude is going further down. And when you're going further down, with a decrease in altitude, there's an increase in pressure. So there's more pressure on the outside. And the easiest way to get rid of this, by the way, is to take huge gulps of air. You just take in some air, or you chew chappies.
Or you blow your nose like the. Like
you get grab it and blow out, and your pressure equals. There you go. Don't blow too hard; it may pop right out. Right? Okay. So if it does that, they want to know what happens if it is blocked. Obviously, then the pressure will not be maintained. And this may lead to impaired hearing. Or we can say we'll hear muffled sounds, not so clear. Good. And I added this little bit there. The same diagram, it wasn't part of this particular paper, it came from another one, but dealing with the same thing, so I didn't add the whole diagram there. Explain how a severe cold could affect person who dives to great depths in water. Now again, coming to altitude and depth. The further down you go, the pressure increases. And this would be the external pressure. Now what happens if you have a severe cold, then obviously the eustachian tube would have mucus in it, and this mucus would give it a blocked situation there, and because of that, you wouldn't be able to maintain equal pressure on either side, and this could either also give you listening to muffled sounds, etc. In addition to that, if it is very serious, you could even pop the eardrum. You could burst the eardrum because of that. Moving on. The next sensory organ, and this is the eye. The diagram below shows a cave with two persons during the day. The arrows indicate the direction in which each person is walking. The accompanying table shows the diameter of the pupil of the eyes of each person at 30-second intervals. Now, there's two parts to this question. You have to read the three parts. You have to read this first, the instructions. Secondly, you've got to look at the diagram. Thirdly, you have to look at the table and then answer the questions. So, let's look at the diagram. The diagram is showing you here, one person here, person one, he's going into the cave. Person two is coming out of the cave. And the table is saying, in time, 30, 60, 90, 120. The diameter of A is 7654, and the diameter of B is 5678. So in the one, diameter is decreasing. The other one, the diameter is actually increasing, as you can see there. And again, we need to know the functions of the pupil, and that is obviously to allow light to pass through. Which set of readings, A or B, represent the changes in the pupil size of person one? Now, let's look at person one. What is he doing? He is going from outside inside. So here, obviously, it's bright, Here it would be dim, or in fact dark, inside the cave. So we know that if we need to let more light come into the eye, obvious, the pupil must increase in diameter so that more light can come in. And the less light there is, the more wide or the more dilated the pupil becomes. So obviously it would be B. That one there. His pupil must dilate. So person 1, it will be set B. Explain your answer. I've given you that. He is walking in, and in is dark. And in this case, the pupil dilates. Why does it dilate? To allow more light to enter the eye. Absolutely simple. Just giving you a different, you see what we are so used to, we get a diagram, label this, label that, give the function. No, guys, that's not going to happen. You need to know your work to such an extent that the way they ask you, they're still asking you the same thing. They want to know whether you know this and can you use this in another situation. This is what life is all about, because the situations we face are not always the same. Explain how the change mentioned in 2241 above is brought about. I've just added that little bit. How is this change brought about? Now, I got a little thing that you'll remember. It will be debit and credit and BCCR. Debit, the D stands for dim light, so that's where we're going. So how are these changes brought about? In dim light, D. R for radial muscles. What? C for contract. And C again, I put a square there, the circular muscles. Relax. And when this happens, the pupil becomes dilated. And dilated, more light enters the eye, obviously. These two people are obvious answers. The minute you're moving in dark condition, pupil must dilate to allow more light to pass. So even if you don't remember this, write this down. Many of you just leave it blank because you can't remember the first part. Write the second part in because it gives you 2 marks out of 4. That's half, 50% already. Better than nothing. So take your marks where you can. Obviously, the opposite will take place in this side. We're going to say in bright light, the circular muscles contract and the radial muscles relax, and it will be constrict, less light. We can do it on this diagram, it's on this thing here itself. In 2 colors, there's bright, radial muscles contract, you just write relax. Circular muscles relax, you write contract. And the pupil is constricted and less light. Now guys, you don't have to learn both of these things. You only need to know one. Why? Because the other one is the exact opposite. Why kill yourself learning both? Because you're going to sit in the exam and scratch your head when they ask, which one do I know? Do I know this one or that one? If you know only one, then you know. If they ask you in dark, yes, I know dark, good, very good, I'm going to answer it. If they ask you bright, still good, because I'll write the one on the question paper and repeat the opposite in my answer book. With that, back to Indy.
Let us go to a break. Guys, like I said before, the competition is now closed, but we will be choosing the winners out of a hat during this break. Please keep your questions coming. I will be going over them with Aslam during the break. Thanks again to Liberty for making the show completely awesome. I know we're having such a great time. Grade 12s, grade 11ers next week. You can still tune in too. But see you now after the break. Guys, I'm so sad we're coming to the last 15 minutes of the show. I wish I could just go on for hours and hours. Knowing that it's the last 15 minutes of the show, we are getting the names ready. But what Aslam is going to do is he's going to go through that competition question and let's see if you got your answers right. Aslam, let's start it. Let's go.
Back to the question, or
Yeah, to the question.
that competition question, there's it there again. I'm hoping you got it right. And we will announce the winners and the answers at the same time. Is that good?
Yeah, well, let's go through the answer now,
Let's
and then
do the answer then.
as soon as
because
you've
we
got the
closed
winner,
already.
then we go back.
What
yeah.
part of the body produces thyroxine, guys? And if you were listening to me, we have answered that question in the first segment of what we were doing. It was our first question, where does this thing get secreted? And obviously, your answer is B, the thyroid gland. The pituitary gland is the one at the base of the brain. It secretes STH, ADH, GH, FSH, LH, all of those guys. And the thalamus is a little bit higher than that in the brain, and it has other functions, which fortunately for you, you don't have to know. So it was B, the thyroid gland. That was the answer.
Yay! Okay, guys, so I hope that if you got B, that you're jumping for joy. I do know I am connected on chat, and they are picking the answers as we speak, so we will be letting everyone know who the winner is at the end of the show. But I think what we're going to do now is we're going to answer some questions.
There we go. We want those questions.
Yeah,
The
and keep
questions are
them
most
coming.
important for what we want to do today.
Exactly. So let's have a look around. Okay, this one is from Sidonia, and she asks, what is the difference between the oval and round window, and are they situated near each other?
Good. If I take a longitudinal section of, that lets me down all the time. This is more or less a diagram to show you the inner ear. If we just cut it out that way, just to make it a bit easier to understand. The oval window, remember, is attached to the stirrup here, and it takes the vibrations inside here in this area here. The round window is below that, and the functional difference is very easy. The oval window transmits vibrations to the inner ear, while the round window absorbs excess vibrations. What would happen? All these vibrations are coming in here, and these vibrations are causing you to hear, because when the vibrations take place, then the hair cells touch the tectoral membrane, and the minute that happens, the stimulus is converted to an impulse from there to the auditory nerve, cerebral cortex, and that's when you are hearing what I'm telling you, and you interpret what I'm saying. In the meanwhile, there would be excess vibrations. That means vibrations will still carry on. And if these vibrations continue in your ear, then obviously you wouldn't be able to hear clearly. So what happens is this guy, the round window, absorbs this vibration. It actually stretches out and goes back to position. So the vibrations knock it, it stretches and comes back into position. So its job is to make sure that there's no distortion. It absorbs excess vibrations.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got another question. Now, this one is from Vanessa. And Asam, what I loved about this one is that they actually were helping each other out on the page. Mindsets, I love that. Vanessa asked the question, and Poppy helped her out. So here it is, guys, because maybe by Vanessa asking the question, it's going to help you out too. So, what are the effects on a person if the motor neuron in a reflex arc is damaged?
Great question, Vanessa, and I'm glad that everybody's helping out. Give your answers. Like we said earlier, Indy said it 1,000 times already. There are no stupid questions. The only ones are going to be regret questions if you don't ask them, and then the exam comes and something similar comes up and you have a problem. Remember, the sensory neuron takes impulses from the receptor to the CNS, and the motor neuron takes the message from the CNS to the effector. The effector in our diagram that we did earlier was that muscle that's going to bring about a response. So if in a reflex arc or a reflex action, the motor neuron is damaged, then obviously you will feel the sensation, but you would not be able to do anything about it. And this, by the way, is a function of a reflex action. It has a protective function. So you respond immediately and you pull your hand or whatever it is out of the danger. So now what would happen is your hand is on the stove, you're getting burnt, you can feel it, but because the motor neuron is not going to that muscle, you're not going to contract your muscle and your hand won't move away, resulting total damage of the hand. So that is the answer to that one there.
Okay.
You will not be able to respond to the stimulus.
Another thing that we did have from Matapo, which was quite interesting, and I've already told Aslam. He says, I have a way to remember those 3 consecutive bones. It is has, and that is H for the hammer, A for anvil, and S for stirrup. I know that you also were telling me, Aslam, about the
Latin name.
Yes.
Good guy, that's great. His name again, sorry?
This one is Matapo.
Matapo, great. That is the stuff. You may have heard it even earlier with the recorded one. Hammer, anvil, stirrup, and that's the order, has. You cannot forget that. If you want to know the Latin names, it's also, you can make a small word, mus. Malleus, incus, stoppage. But stick to the English one, guys. It's easy, hammer, anvil, stirrup. Not difficult to remember that, so stick to those ones. Great. I'm glad you're giving your suggestions to us because we can only get better with that. And whatever you're giving here and how you remember it will help others to remember it the same way. I'm very pleased that you are giving that. Thanks, guys.
And this is, are we going over some more stuff?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. And then as soon as we do have the winner, I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks, Inde. The last part here we're dealing with is on homeostasis, more specifically thermal control. A lovely diagram of the skin and questions based on that. It's a cross-section to the human skin, label layer B and part C. Notice layer B and part C. So let's go there. That's layer B, and obviously that is the epidermis. The epidermis. And the other one was part C. This one here, attached to the hair follicle, that will be the erector muscle. Write down the letters. Again, if you write down the names, sorry guys, no marks for that, of 2 parts in the diagram which are involved in the insulation of the body. Insulation of the body, meaning keeping the heat in or the heat out. So on a hot day, it wants to keep the heat out, and on a cold day, it wants to keep the heat in. Okay, so which parts are involved in that in our body? Very obvious would be the hair, that would be A, and obviously these guys here, some of us don't like them because you get too much, and that is the adipose tissue or fat. So it's A and D. A and D. Okay? 163, what will happen to part F and E on a cold day? Let's go back. F, the blood vessel, and E, the sweat gland. A cold day, the blood vessels will constrict. And if they constrict, then less blood. Let's just see what the mark allocation is. It's only 2 marks, right? So we say they constrict. Just for an explanation, for way of explanation, when they constrict, less blood goes to the skin, and if less blood goes to the skin, less heat goes to the skin, and if less heat goes to the skin, less heat lost by conduction, convection, and radiation and evaporation. And part E is the sweat gland. Obviously, on a cold day, you should know this by now, the sweat gland is less active, it secretes less sweat. If there's less sweat secreted, there will be less sweat evaporating and less cooling by evaporation. On a cold day, we don't want to cool down, we want to keep it warm. Okay? That covers us with that one. The next one is a lovely question. Study the diagrams below and answer the questions that follow, because this one integrates 2 different sections, endocrine and thermal control as well at the same time. Diagram 1, there's that snake I was talking about earlier, the child screaming there, help, help, help. Diagram 2, the hair is lying flat. Diagram 3, the hair is erect. Question says, which diagram 2 or 3 is representative of the skin of the person in diagram 1? Here's the person now, they are scared. Actually, they gave you the clue on the child's head there, where the hair is standing, so it'll obviously be diagram 3. All right, State the reason for your answer. The child is scared and there's more blood that is flowing in the area, and we have the erector muscles contracting and the hair stands up. Identify part A and its function. Part A and its function, there's it, we spoke about it just now. The erector muscle, and the function of the erector muscle is to contract to make the hair stand, or to relax to let the hair lie down. Draw line diagrams of cross sections of a blood capillary in the skin in diagrams 2 and 3 to show the difference in the blood capillaries. Line diagram, simple. They only want to know the diameter. You don't have to draw a whole blood vessel here. They only want to know line diagrams to show the difference. In this one here, obviously, because it's lying flat, that means it's a cold day. So we draw a line diagram like that, and here it would be a cold day, hot day. This would be a hot day, sorry. Hot day. Because the hair is lying flat, it's a hot day, sorry about that. So that will draw there, and this is a cold day, the hair is standing up. So main thing they want to see, whether you can show that this is constricted and this is dilated. That's all they want to see there, nothing fancy. They don't want you to draw a whole blood vessel and so on. They just wanted you to do that in that diagram there. Okay. State the reason for your answer. Obviously, the hair is lying flat. That one there is a hot day, and the other one, the hair is standing up. That is a cold day. Have we got the answer? I've got the winners there.
We do. I have the winner's name, and all I'm waiting for now is to find out on which platform he... I see. Facebook, I think he got it from. And the winner is Specile. So Specile, please email us your name, your T-shirt size, as well as the book that you would like us to give to you. Congratulations. We've got a bit of time. So what I want to do is I just want to quickly explain to them how it works. We choose two names from... Let's have a look here. We choose two names from email, two names from PepText, two names from SMS, and two names from Facebook. And the winner was actually from email. Sorry about that. And it is Specile. Please make sure that you email us all of those details. Guys, I know that it is the end of grade 12 winter school, and I'm so sad, but don't forget, that doesn't mean that you don't have to tune in to grade 11. It's always good to learn more and learn extra, and I think this time it will be really good for them in terms of revision, right?
That's right. Everything is revision in that sense. Well done, Specile. That's great for you. I'm happy that you're going to get all this work. Choose the right book that you need and make sure that you use it profitably.
Exactly. So guys, I've had such an amazing time. Thank you so much, and I love the fact that you all talk to each other on the page and help each other out. Just because we're not live, that doesn't mean that you guys can't continue talking to each other. I know a lot of people on the Facebook page who I chat to daily, and it really does help them just to unpack things that they don't understand. That's facebook.com/learn extra, and you can always chat to us on Twitter. Grade 11, see you on Monday. Grade 12s, also you too, and have such a fabulous weekend. See you guys. Bye.